Testing. So I am here in front of the Gandhi statue in Waikiki, Honolulu. I have a mirror to look at my appearance. And I'm here to honor and celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Budapest Memorandum, which I've rebranded Buddha's Memo of Peace, easier to remember. And I've decided to do a fast from food and water and shelter, domestic shelter, until Tucker Carlson covers the Budapest Memorandum, Memo's Buddha of Peace. And that is one of 8 reasons why I'm doing this. So here is the 4th of those reasons, the moral mandate for America's protection of Ukraine as contracted by Russia through this Budapest Memorandum. So here that is. Russia contracted America to stop Putin's invasion. That is the Budapest Memorandum and its 30th anniversary we celebrate today, December 5th. President Ronald Reagan is credited for winning the Cold War, but very few people know where the beginning of that success all started. It was March 8th, 1983, in the Sheraton Twin Towers, Orlando, Florida. It began with Reagan's speech to the National Association of Evangelicals, wherein he called the Soviets the evil empire. I remember it because critics pushed back hard, calling it dangerous political theater. Only now do I appreciate that this was the defining moment of the entire Cold War. From that moment on, the moral high ground had been clearly, solidly, and irrevocably set to stone history. From that perch, we found the mandate and sense of divine right and conviction that the price was well worth the cost. The resolve to hold steady in the face of Soviet threats of nuclear holocaust. I remember this as a kid. It was just, we think we're scared today. Back then, we were just terrified. The resolve to hold steady in the face of Soviet threats of nuclear holocaust, a true high ground to the harshest of critics, and the grounding for a genuine reassurance to allies spooked by Reagan's counter to Soviet aggression. I happened to be in England when Reagan went there to meet with Thatcher and was sympathetic to the protests against Reagan, who is being held as a warmonger for countering the missiles that Russia had pointed at Europe, with American missiles now pointed at Russia. So I had sympathized with the protesters back then. So this is all very firsthand to me and all those of the 80s. Quite the contrast where today's conservatives, so this was the Reagan. From that moment on, the moral high ground had been clearly, solidly, and irrevocably set to stone history. From that perch, we found the mandate and sense of divine right and conviction that the price was well worth the cost. The resolve to hold steady in the face of Soviet threats of nuclear holocaust, a true high ground to the harshest of critics, and the grounding for a genuine reassurance to allies spooked by Reagan's counter to Soviet aggression. So I'm writing this from my own firsthand experience of those days. Quite the contrast where today's conservatives hold to the U.S. as the evil empire. Well, we've completely, what a contrast. $200 billion is too big a commitment from the $25 trillion budget already spent in the last 3 years. Yes, that is $25 trillion for all local, state, Fed, and NGO programs spent right here in America since Putin's war began. Check those numbers. I was dumbfounded by it too. So will you. Somehow Ukraine's magical $200 billion, less than 1% of America's total government cost, would suddenly solve America's homelessness, student debt, the U.S. debt crisis, the drug epidemic, falling educational standards, crumbling infrastructure. That massive $25 trillion spent since Putin's invasion began has not fixed even one of these many problems, not even slowed any of them. And yet, Ukraine's critics insist that their magical 200 billion would fix them all. Here we find the contrast between those Republicans made in President Reagan's image, with their commitment to peace from strength. Compare them to those we have today. This breed of conservative talks, all the same logic and reasoning pushed by Democrats in their fight to stall and stop Ronald Reagan in each step and turn of his campaign against the evil empire, until the day the Soviet Union fell. Then suddenly not a single word about their failures to understand the ways of peace through strength. Buddha's Memo of Peace will reset America with that same moral high ground for the first time since Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and so too light our way forward to the great American cause of freedom for all people. So I rebranded the Budapest Memorandum as the Memo of Peace from Buddha. Buddha's Memo of Peace, just easier to remember, and love the ring of it. Buddha's Memo of Peace will reset America with that same moral high ground for the first time since Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and so too light our way forward to that great American cause of freedom for all people. Right, so for the freedom for all, we don't take it seriously anymore with the globalists and all, and this by those conspirators, which I'm very much part of, now being ecstatic that Trump has overcome the globalists that have been fighting him. So this is a testament to America. So when I say that great cause of that great American cause of freedom for all people, I'm saying it not as a matter of poetics, but as a matter of having lived to see what became of Reagan's push against the communist Soviets and the globalists, according to conspirators today, against Trump, and in both cases, victory there. So it is true. The ideal lives, and that is given to us once again with this 30th anniversary, the Budapest Memorandum. So light our way forward for the first time since Putin's invasion. That is the blessing bequeathed upon the simplest of honors to this magnificent document that history lays upon our laps with the Budapest Memo, Buddha's Memo of Peace, all there in this 30th anniversary of Ukraine's contract with Russia and America. People consider the end of the Cold War as the culmination of Reagan's success, but that is not the marker of it. The true bookend is found right here in the Buddha Memo for Peace. That marks the day President Yeltsin had officially taken President Clinton as his own mentor in their task to share the last of the old. Let me see if we can get Gandhi in here. There we go. I like that. I just have to put it more over here. That marks the day President Yeltsin had officially taken President Clinton as his own mentor in their task to shed the last of the old Soviet Union. America now designated guardian of peace by Russia itself. There, America still stands vigil against the worst of tyrants of Russia and war that would so dare superimpose upon the people and nation of Ukraine once again the old ways of Soviet conquest. Buddha's Memo is the victory pillar of a friendship reaching to the heights of today's darkest hour. As a tap upon the shoulder of our collective conscience, it whispers this grand reminder to a time of trust and partnership and the great remaking of the old Soviet from their ways of terror and dysfunction and into a people transformed by the ways of democracy, freedom, and a modern economy. Today's conservatives don't believe in such things in their disdain of Democrats, but the Russians of those days did in their thankfulness to America. They led the rush to 1 million enterprises with the world for the first time, all made possible upon the foundation of freedom Yeltsin so wanted for his nation, a far cry of Putin's claims as a conquered people with but the spoils of war by the West. No, that is Putin's delusion talking, not of those by Russians who led with such pride in the strongest of brotherhood to America's finest. That is the story of the Budapest Memo, Buddha's Memo of Peace, a story started in the trusting friendships of Ronald Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev. For the grandest of political marriage, we beget of Yeltsin and Clinton. Buddha's Memo is the child of that marriage and heir to this brand of peace. Therein the lie told often that America broke their promise to Gorbachev not to take an inch past Germany. America did not break that promise. Yeltsin did. He invited, yes, warmly invited, President Clinton, America, please step forward to help Ukraine. We did not take, we were given, literally, repeatedly. That's the real story. That was not of NATO's doing, but Russia's. Nothing infuriates Putin more than this great betrayal by Yeltsin and Gorbachev. Putin's distrust and disdain is not truly of America, but with those of his own leaders who set forth such freedoms for Russia and Ukraine, like all the satellite countries of the old Soviets. It's their legacy that Putin so fiercely fights with, and all to destroy their legacy of freedoms. Unfortunately, for Putin, America, the spoiler of his plans and victory for 3 years now. Buddha's Memo of Peace is the undeniable proof of this real story, the badge of a hero's notice of a mandate made and held 3 decades before to protect those of Ukraine's sovereignty, in black and white, undeniable, unchangeable, no matter the mastery of deception so vividly repeated with Putin's supporters. Therefore, they will not touch or even mention Buddha's Memo of Peace, the Budapest Memorandum. Today, that changes. Tucker Carlson, yes, please tell this story of Ukraine in this Memo of Peace from Buddha. Hence my fast till you do. A lead detail of that story is with the Eastern Bloc nations that began joining NATO in those days. They did so in the spirit of brotherhood with America. It was giddy excitement of tens of millions now stepping into the myriad opportunities to be found in the West, and had for the first time after a great many decades of suppression, torture, extermination, much as those living under Putin's invasion of Ukraine once more. Buddha's Memo of Peace is the monument of America's ideal as the extraordinary wanted most by Russia. Today it lays and tethers upon the lies of fictional intrusion by the West. Those rantings are windows to the paranoia of Putin's childhood fantasies of Bolshevik empire and their seething hatred of NATO's power to stop it. Buddha's Memo is the antidote for all those infected with this Putin delusion. Today's Buddha's Memo of Peace offers a clear choice between those of Yeltsin's vision of the heady years of that great Russo-American brotherhood, or all the horrors of Bolshevik ploys of war, terror, and conflict found in Putin's dreams of Soviet conquest and the apocalypse that always follows. Yes, Yeltsin or Putin. Today, this 30th anniversary of the Budapest Memorandum, Buddha's Memo of Peace is a choice between those two worlds. Buddha's Memo of Peace rips open that curtain, iron curtain, for a peak of beauty found in the peace and prosperity that was America's gift to all those escaping the evil empire as we have Putin's breeding. That, my friends, is the real story behind NATO's march upon Putin's borders of petty superstition. It was a welcome mat to America in honor of the request and friendship of President Yeltsin, personally, continuously, over years, and with the joy and pride for the best of the Russian people. America, President Clinton, the guest of honor, not colonial invasion, as Putin is today. Most telling of Putin's hoax about American intrusion upon Russia is that so many of us today were there and saw firsthand the story play out as we looked upon with such disbelief of the impossible of those Soviet communists now rushing to the ways of American freedom, market, and opportunity. Come on, guys, all you old buggards. Surely you must remember, you should know better than to allow Putin's propaganda to stay different from those of our own firsthand experience of those extraordinary days. President Clinton, please step forward to tell us, remind us of those most magical of America's triumph since the fall of Hitler. If you can remember, if you can read this history, if you now see the real story, please stand and raise your voice for the Ukrainian people in their celebration of this most sacred of histories, documents, agreements, now given once more in this 30th anniversary of the Budapest Memorandum, Buddha's Memo of Peace to the world. That is why I sit here to fast from food and water until Tucker tells the real story, or at least talks of the Budapest Memorandum, Buddha's Memo of Peace, because I can say it, but us little people, we don't. You need the guru, right? We condemn about those societies of class division. Well, here we sit. If Tucker doesn't say it, it's not true. Tucker has to say it, then Americans will believe the deception that they have been so carefully manipulated into believing that America is the aggressor, Russia the valiant defender of his Russian borders, when in fact America has been that lone hero standing by their commitment made to President Yeltsin of Russia, a commitment made to Russia upon Russia's prodding that America please sign on as signatory, as the guardian to Ukraine's sovereignty against Russian aggression, invasion. And this is what Yeltsin wanted to. It wasn't so much to secure the 1,700 nukes from Ukraine. That was part of it, but more in partnership with Clinton, mentoring under Clinton, how to convert the old Soviet Union to a new Russia as part of this new world to them of the West and America. And that is the story of the Budapest Memorandum. And I am offering the only part of my life that I can give for that. As an Italian, giving up food, now that is sacrifice. Anyway, this is part one. So this is one of 8 reasons to establish the moral, legal, and international mandate for America's guardianship to Ukraine's sovereignty against Russian aggression. So I'm going to go back and read the other the full document, the 8 reasons for taking on this fast. Big aloha from Honolulu, Waikiki, and in honor of Gandhi, the guru to politicians looking for peace. Aloha.